This is Wilson Morales talking to Omari Hardwick regarding his film Spell. As you were wrapping up your run on Power, I'm sure you were getting a number of scripts as far as what to do, whether it be a TV series or a movie. You chose this project. What went into saying yes?
It was interesting because this was the third, and can you hear me pretty good, Wills?
Yeah, it sounds a little low, but let's see how it plays out on the other end.
I think it'll play out. So this was actually the third project that I ended up doing. It wouldn't have been the third that came my way. You're correct. There were a lot of things that came initially. I actually was working on one project while still on Power. So I ended up, while I guess maybe 3 episodes were left of Power, on the whodunit portion, like the last 5 episodes, which of course I knew so many things that the viewership didn't know yet. I even knew things the castmates didn't know. But during that time, with about 3 episodes again left on Power, I went off to do a film in LA with Nate Parker called American Skin, which was a beautiful film. Very, very poetic take on Black Lives Mattering, the pain involved in losing a child to a cop wrongly. And Nate Parker plays that character, being the father of a child. I play his brother. We both are ex military guys. And so there was American Skin, which is obviously apropos to the moment of where we now find ourselves as a world, as a nation. And then we ended up doing, on my second say yes to, was saying yes to Army of the Dead, which is a Netflix project with Zack Snyder directing, co-starring with Dave Bautista and Anna Pernella. And then we ended up doing this project. So again, this did come my way as early back as maybe a month after wrapping up on Power. We just knew we had to wait to do it because those other 2 films were in front of it. And what stood out to me was my initial meeting with the director. He said, you know, as much as I loved Power and as much as the world loved Power, and I get that, he said, I needed to see a color in you that wasn't necessarily shown playing James St. Patrick. And I sort of perhaps internally chuckled, because in my mind I'm like, man, between Jamie, James, and Ghost, between that 3-headed reality of what this man was on Power, he absolutely, in my opinion, and I know as the actor driving this guy, I feel like he absolutely showed pretty much levels of that which this director was speaking about as that being vulnerability that he needed to see from Omari that he didn't perhaps see in Power. And I, of course, again, thought you would have seen that in Power. But what he needed to see really stood out to me. And it was a movie called Will Gardner, where I played, ironically, an actual ghost. I played an apparition in the movie, a soldier who had passed, but you start to, in the film, find out that he had passed. You don't know that initially. And so he got his hands on that. The director of that film, being Max Martini, reached out to him, or he reached out to Max, having been told by someone, you should watch Omari in this film, and this will give you all you need. And sure enough, it did it. And so that piqued my interest. My ear perked to that. Like anybody that wants to see me, and it's challenging that they haven't seen a color in me, particularly me being such an athlete, Wilson. I took that as a challenge, and I said, well, if you haven't seen that color, what do you want to bring me that is cool enough for me to show that color? And of course, he presented this. He didn't write it. He was directing it. He was allowed by the writer to sort of change it and do what he needed to it. But Tyler Perry had gone to Paramount and said, I think Omari is, you know, definitely one of the next big leading men, and I think you guys should really consider him. And so it was being come at from the angle of Mark Tonderay, the film's director, and of course, Tyler going to Paramount, the studios in the suits, and saying the same thing. And once I read the script, bro, I was fully in, because the horror genre has been just that, in my opinion, Wilson. It hasn't always been the sort of amalgamation of psychological thriller meets that. Obviously, some films have been able to successfully pull both off, but I felt like this did it in a way that we hadn't necessarily seen before, even if it was kind of giving you remnants of certain movies we hadn't seen this type prior. So I said yes.
Now, obviously, from the trailer, everybody says and compares this to Misery, the Black version, because obviously, you know, that's a film with a man, hurt, bum leg, older lady. You look at the trailer, and not that we're not spoiling everything, but you know that's what people are referencing it.
Exactly.
How would you best describe your character, and how is this different from Misery?
So I would best describe my character in saying that he's at a crossroads when we meet him, um, that he's not aware that he's at. That's how I would first say it. Many of us are at crossroads, and we know we're there. You know it. You state it to family members. You state it to people close to you, people not as close. If you trust strangers more, you kind of know. We say it flippantly at times. You know, I'm at a crossroads. I'm trying to figure this, that, and the third out. This guy is at it without having knowledge of that. In his world, in his mind, from his vantage point, he is this great attorney. All things are beautiful. Inclusive in that is his family, the look of it, his wife, his relationship with his wife, his rapport with her, his kids. He's got this great, big, beautiful house in Atlanta, Georgia. Life is good. But there's this dark past. Not that we all don't come from some effed up normal or dysfunctionality that we have to face at some point. He is definitely having to face his in a way again of not knowing that he has to face it at this level. So he goes back to Appalachian Mountains, which is where he comes from. His father has passed on. He's going back for this funeral, and all hell breaks loose. He learns about people in the community. He learns that he's part of that community. He learns why he ran so far away from the community and never wanted to look back. And he learns that he can't necessarily successfully continue to run from it like he has prior. His family is away from him. He's lost, and in so many ways, not just physically lost, but also spiritually and figuratively lost. And so we find him trapped. And that gives you initially the thought of James Caan and Kathy Bates. But I would say what makes it different, and Kurt, the writer, was just really from the gate, and Mark Tonderay equally stated this when he presented the project to me. He said the writer has done such a detailed job of research as it pertains to voodoo and hoodoo and what that really means, and the amalgamation of those two to Christianity. And so it's not the same thing of, ooh, I don't know if you want to do that kind of movie, Omari. You got people in our world as actors, as artists, who might equally give their opinion of movies we should say no to because they wonder if it'll seep in. You know, obviously playing a character as complex as Ghost could seep in. And I think once you're aware that you're not just the actor, but you're sort of an artist, and every actor is not an artist, but those of us who are a little bit more artistic, as you know, Wilson, I think a lot of us, it's hard for us to shake at least portions of the characters that we've prior played. But when you go into that world, some people who are cared for by beautiful families, or at least families that, you know, are wanting to see what's best for them, they would even give their opinion for the artist to not take that kind of role on. And I did hear that. In reading the script, I heard people go, oh, I don't know about that. Because as soon as you say hoodoo and voodoo, people go, ooh. And having been raised as a Christian, but also having known that as an actor, I can't put food on my kid's table if I don't embrace all parts of ugly, not just all parts of beautiful. So this is that. You see a lot of ugly. You see a lot of things gone wrong with this practice, this cultural sort of pathos that kind of is the epicenter of this culture. And Eloise, played brilliantly by Loretta Devine, is at the center of that pathos or ethos, that thing that keeps that community thriving, Christianity included, but also hoodoo and voodoo and boogities, and using these dolls to sort of manipulate, you know, what happens to my character and those that have been in the same situation that my James Caan has been in, of course, prior to me going down in the plane crash. So it's different. It's definitely Misery on steroids, but it's equally different once you watch it.
You've worked with Loretta Devine before, at least you guys were in the same film with Colored Girls. Obviously, I'm not sure if you've worked on other projects. Here, it's just the two of you. It's almost like a stage setting because it's, you know, it's a confined area, but it's mostly the two of you. How's working with her? You know, she's always amazing in the role she plays. And here you are, obviously you're playing opposite this lady who's supposed to appear menacing without giving away what the story is.
Just amazing, man. I actually got chill bumps when you were posing the question, like just the part of reminding me that it was staged, because it not only was literally wood underneath our feet and being that we were in the attic, of course, this wood laden. Um, I honestly remembered immediately, and I've had this feeling even with Joseph, who played Tommy, because he comes from stage. And so any of us that come from stage, when you're around each other, my first job was with Anthony Mackie. Anthony was fresh out of Juilliard prior to obviously playing Papa Don in 8 Mile. So when Spike Lee, put that film together, he did whisper to Anthony and myself about his belief and faith in us because we came from stage. And so again, when I'm working with an actor on film, small screen or big, or even smaller screen, even if it were a podcast, and I'm speaking to somebody like yourself, Wilson, and it's about theater, I tend to get a very 8-year-old childish enjoyment or memory of that which started this whole thing that the world knows now as a pretty solid actor, because I started there. And so to have an icon who I looked up to from not only the perspective of her being this great actor, to your point, Wilson, but she's a theater goddess, bro. She comes from stage in one of the most famous stage plays ever, as we know. So to have the relationship I prior had, which obviously quells any nerves because I'm so used to her and I love her and she loves me, and we've been very close for a while now. When you put two theater people in such a small confined arena and you're asking us to remember pages of dialogue, I mean pages. Ghost didn't say a lot of words, as you know, and obviously I'm pretty good with words, and my memories is right there with that, but this was a lot of words while having to focus on the physical, grueling nature of the character and what I needed to submit to and give myself to, and not only to the director or the producers or Paramount, but also to Loretta. She's such a beacon of brilliance as it pertains to being, and I don't like to use that word a lot, but she's a brilliant actress, and no one had seen her in this light. So for me, Wilson, I had to grab her hand and give her faith in, hey, I've played the bad guy. I've played the antagonist. I know exactly what it's like. You haven't necessarily played that, so I can hold your hand in that way. But in terms of the things that she has done, nobody's done it like her. There's only one her. There's only one voice that sounds like that. She's immediately recognizable. And so every day was a joy. Every day was as grueling as it was, bro, because it was physically the most grueling character I've ever played in 18 years now as an actor, a working actor. But that was like, yo, I get to go to set again tomorrow. Is she okay? She's there, cool. And no slights to the great, other actors that want it. You got Lorraine Burroughs, who's a great actress, a British actress. She played my wife. She's smacked down great. But Loretta Devine is Loretta Devine. And so every single day, from the makeup trailer, bro, to action, I was dialed in just to be there with her, just for her to be proud of me when it was over.
People do research when they do certain films. They get into characters physically, and depending on the occupation to play. In the movie, you're piloting an aircraft. Was that you? Did you take any lessons? Was that a stunt double? People go through extremes. They want to get into. They want to be method. I'm like, oh, I want to do it myself.
Well, I am method. That was a cool lie, Wilson, because I've talked to you, I don't know, 70,000 times. And I'm method, and actually stayed in prison at times, even in doing work, namely Power in season 4 when that brother was incarcerated, that brother being Ghost. But for this, yes, there were things that I absolutely did of methodical nature. Flying the plane was not one of them. We had an incredible stunt guy. We had a great pilot. We had both. I was able to be in it, definitely in the look of what a pilot would be in it, looking like, but they couldn't clear that. And this is the part you might know or might not know. We shot it in South Africa. So being in another continent and in the country of South Africa, there was no way that Paramount was going to allow certain things. And we had but a brevity of moment to get ready to go there. I had just come off of course, as I stated, Army of the Dead. So I had about 2 weeks, bro, before leaving Army of the Dead, taking a breath, getting out of that guy who's completely a different character and getting into this one. So we didn't get to go to flight school, but absolutely, I need you to write a script where I'm going to flight school, because that's something that I want to do for sure.
What did you pick up from this director? And I didn't know there was a brother until I looked at his face. I'm like, oh, he's a British director. We're always concerned about the American black directors. This is a black British director.
Right.
What did you learn from him that's different from other directors you've worked with in the past? Obviously, when you're on Power, you have different directors for every episode. And then when you do a film, it's one guy, and you've done a number of films. So what did you pick up from this one that's different from the other directors?
That's a great question. Initially, it was that conversation that I aforementioned that came, Wilson, with the level of challenge that it came with, and that being the very bold statement. I don't think it was audacious at all. It was bold, and I liked it. It was a sexy question of rhetoric, and asking me, do you think you've been able to show a level of vulnerability in anything that you played that the world has already seen that wouldn't necessarily make it where I could push the envelope and take you to a level that hasn't been, you meeting prior? Have you met a level that you think I couldn't take you to in this? And when he asked me that, I was like, well, I don't know where you're trying to take me in this. He said, well, you know what the story's about? I said, I do know what the story's about. And I said, and so where are you trying to take me? He said, I really want to break you. So, you don't really have a lot of directors saying that to me, Wilson. Some of it is because my work ethic is nutty, as you know. Some of it is because you have an ex-athlete meets a poet. That's a weird human being. Shout outs to Kobe Bryant, rest in peace, who's absolutely every bit of a poet. And as you know, would have been one of the great producers in our business. Oscar winner, first time out. But I think that, and people like Kobe that I'm not able to mention, but absolutely, you get that in certain moments where a director might challenge you. But I, as Omari Hardwick, in the 17 to 18 years of work, at that point, 16 or 17 years, Wilson, I've never had a guy say, I want to break you. Like, I want to break you. Oh, okay. To build me back up? No, I just want to break you. I don't want to build you back up at all. This character can't be built back up. We have no movie. I need you broken. And bro, that for me was like, nobody's ever come at me like that. What do I learn, therefore, off of the great question that Wilson asked? What I learned is this dude sort of saw my future as big as I saw it. Every director hasn't seen that. Sometimes directors sign up to get you on the base that they need you on. So if they need you as the base hitter, not necessarily the home run hitter, Wilson, then they just need you to get on second base. This guy saw me as a home run hitter from the gate, from the inception of our conversation. And not that Spike Lee didn't. And that's ironic, Wilson, because that's director number one. Spike is my first boss, as you know. Spike said to me, you got all the stuff, all the ilk. He said to me in the middle of the career, he said, I need your stature to get up to where your craft is. So he's back at what his statement was initially, which is your craft is not questionable. Your ilk is there. I need your stature to get bigger. So I tried. I'm running. Spike, you looking? I'm running. I'm trying, bro. I'm running. I'm working with Andy Davis, the director of Fugitive. Brilliant Andy Davis, who taught me his own level of teaching, while Kevin Costner was teaching me his own level. I've worked with the youngs of Nate Parker. I've worked with the youngs of Ava DuVernay. I've worked with the youngs of Qasim Basir, Boy, Girl, a Dream, a brilliant young director who the world will take notice of soon. And I've worked again with, Zack Snyder. I mean, come on, 300 The Watchmen. Phil Journal, The Gridiron Gang, who did Enemy or State of Grace, prior to that, with Ed Harris, one of my favorite actors on the planet. It's been a hefty career, Wilson, when I can sit here and say it to you. I don't get to talk like this, but when I got to Mark Tondere, a British brother who is Zimbabwean, but had a British father, so he's biracial, but he's absolutely a brother. It was a moment of like, oh, this might be what it looks like when Ryan Coogler throws an arm around Michael B. and says, can we hang out for a while? Not just one film. Oh, this might be what it smells like when Scorsese says, I know it's this part of my chapter, and Leo, you're more in the middle of yours, but DiCaprio, can you please hang out with me in my last chapter? Like, that was the first time, bro, that I felt like this guy, me and him might go some places and do some multiple projects. So what I learned is that I was at a different station in life, Wilson, when being asked the question that you astutely asked, and that some people really are dialed in preemptively way before they direct you. They already directed you.
obviously, you know, and I'm going to ask it now, you know, actors like to say, you know, they want to walk away from their characters and start something new. I've had it with Michael K. Williams. I've had it with Idris. You know, as you continue to work, you know, you won't be defined by one role, one character. Obviously, I've known you for a long time, so I would never reference you as this one role because you know I've known you since Dark Blue, since you know Kick Ass and all of that stuff. You know, so like I know other people may not know. You know, obviously we got a new franchise with the Power franchise going on. Have you watched the series? Actors like to say they're busy. Have you had a chance to watch the new series?
I haven't watched it yet. I've not. I want to sit back when the fanfare is sort of quieted down. I used to tell stars when they would say, "Hey, oh, are you live tweeting?" Because you know, of course, you know, a nod to, and this is ironic. You'll find it ironic. A nod to another great Black female creator, and that being Shonda Rhimes, of course, with that world that she created, and that being that specific show, Olivia Pope inclusive, and that being my friend who steered Olivia Pope, Kerry Washington, they became the sort of template of how it looks to live tweet with your fan base while they're watching you and you're tweeting with them. And so we came to that like we were going to take on the same impassioned road of, hey, let's do this with the fans. And I used to sit, and finally by season 2, I got away with it. When they had seen my level of work, I'm sure, and maybe 50 protected it and allowed for this to go down this way that I'm about to state. But I was able to stop live tweeting. I said, I want to watch it. And I don't need to watch Omari because when the work is over, it's truly over. But I got to champion my teammates. So I'm always very, very confused when actors say, oh, I don't watch my work. That's very confusing for me because that's basically stating that when you get in the huddle and the play is called, and then the film session is shown later, you're only focused on your part, which is crazy to me, especially as an athlete. Like, so I'm not gonna watch Naturi's work. If I don't watch myself, I don't watch Joseph. I don't watch Lala. I don't see if she's growing. I don't see if Michael Rainey's growing. Half of the directing was Omari with Michael Rainey. I mean, you got a guy that's actually playing his father, and he has a relationship discord at times with his biological father. So Omari became very much a father, and so I had to be able to watch these guys on Sunday night. With that being stated, I'll use that as an example. It would be like watching it, Wilson, live tweeting presently, because the fans are saying so much. Some of it hugely flattering. Bring Omari back. Bring Omari. Some of it not as flattering. Some of it this way and that way. Some of it I shouldn't have an opinion on. It's not my job to have a statement or an opinion on that. But while they're all going crazy, left or right, left-winged or right-winged, about the politics of that show and how it all went down, and particularly if they love the character Omari played, it would be hard for me and a disservice to those people that were my castmates to sit and watch it while all of the commentary is happening. So when that passes a bit, dies down a bit, you know, doesn't die like Ghost actually died, but dies down a bit in a different sort of death, then I'll grab that remote and I'll absolutely tune in.